Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today we have a very, very special guest speaker. I've been looking forward to this particular podcast episode for a while, and I'm so excited for us to get into it because we're going to be talking about thriving instead of surviving. We're going to be talking about stress management. We're going to be talking about how to handle your stress better as a wedding professional, and we have a very special guest today. His name is Julian. So Julian, please come up and say hello.
Hey guys.
Yay. Perfect. So Julian, tell me about yourself, tell our audience about you, all of the background, all the good stuff.
Absolutely. So first of all, honored to be here, listening for your podcast for a long time, and Megan introduced. Very cool. I love what you do, and I'm happy that I'm kind of in the same space, and it's going to be a little complimentary or a lot complimentary. So I have two hats, and I mean, I don't have any hats right here, but I'm a wedding photographer for a long time, close to 17 years, which is less important for this purpose. But it kind of defines that I'm being very long in the industry and understand how hard things can be for photographers or anyone who stands a long time during the day, works long hours. It's not very good things, to say the least. I used to be 90 pounds heavier than I am right now. And my health wasn't great. And at some point, my new doctor told me that you have 5 years and then maybe a stroke, maybe heart attack, something nice that will leave your kid without a father, which sounds funny now. And at the time, it didn't sound funny at all. And that turned my life kind of 180 degrees overnight, literally, despite I knew I'm overweight and knew I'm not healthy, but so is everyone else. And we see it everywhere. But that specific doctor was very convincing, despite being overweight and stinking from cigarettes. But it just was something, the way he told that, and basically said, I don't know what to do. If I knew, I would be doing that. But you need to stop eating because you are pre-diabetic. You have fatty liver, very high cholesterol. I have never seen anything like that in my life. Blah, blah, blah. Many things that are not that scary for real right now for me. That was very scary. So I signed up to the gym next day. I started looking for a nutritionist. And I realized that everyone is trying to sell you a program without even knowing any of your details, trying to sell you powders, supplements, whatnot, like Herbalife and things like that. And it just cannot work because we're all different. And that was clear to me from the start. I used to be VP of customer success in a large software company. And I used to work with very high-end clients. And I knew that approach to every single person must be different on any kind of level. So that didn't work for me. And I started researching myself. I turned into a geek of nutrition and working out. I hired 5 different coaches and went through different things. I went and studied biochemistry, certified in personal training, health coaching, getting a nutrition certificate, actually 3. I don't know why, but it was just very cool to have those. And lost a lot of weight, fixed my health to the point where I've probably never been in my life, which continues. It's been almost 10 years now, and we're just getting better. At some point, my doctor told me, whatever you're doing with yourself, you need to do it with others. And he started giving me clients. And then he became my own client too. He was my 5th client when he saw it works for others. And from there, the story just continues. I quit my corporate job a long time ago, actually not because of photography, because of this. And I started coaching people. It started with a lot of my corporate colleagues who flocked to me when I left. Then, we work with a lot of wedding professionals, and they saw what's happening to me through years and shrinking and then building. And people started asking, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And so I got a lot of clients from the wedding industry all over. And this is where I am essentially right now. I am still a wedding photographer. I love it. I'm not going anywhere. And I just want to do more and more and more of that. But I do health coaching. And at this point, it's not just weight loss. Everyone comes for weight loss, but it's I believe everyone can lose weight, but not everyone can do it healthy. And a lot of people damage themselves in the process. And with time, it turned into being more like, how do you sustain your energy? How are you never stressed, never tired, never have a jet lag? To those of you who fly a lot, and jet lag is something that you can definitely eliminate. And improving blood work, whatever you want, of course, with limitations. There's some things that cannot be fixed by nutrition or by working out, but most of the things can be. And I'm very lucky to do this. That's essentially
I
it.
love that. I love that. I feel like we have kind of similar-ish stories. Like for me, like in 2019, I was having headaches all the time. Like I literally, there was a wedding where I passed out at the end of the wedding because of the headache I was having. Turns out it was allergies, but at the time I was getting MRIs done. I think I had 2 or 3 MRIs done, and I thought like there's a tumor in my brain. There's something wrong with my brain. And I kept like diagnosing it with like the worst case scenario instead of looking at the basics. Was I actually eating healthy? Was I eating things that I could have? Was like, and I say that because now I know I have allergies that I was eating almost every single day back then. I also started to get a lot more into understanding like how the body handles stress and understanding how to manage that better. And for me personally in 2019, what I did was I raised my prices. I took less weddings. If you don't have air conditioning, I'm not showing up to your wedding. That was the wedding that I passed out at, was they didn't have air conditioning at the venue.
That's
And it was
horrible.
like, yeah, it was like the middle of May. It was really hot that day. And it was a problem. But I think back to that time and I think back to like I saw people who were healthy. I saw people who were, not eating sugar or caffeine or doing all the things that I was like, yeah, but like that's like the version that I like want to be, but I don't know how to go from where I am to that version of myself. And here I stand in 2024, and I kind of am that version that I used to look back on and be like, I don't think I'll ever get there, but I am now. And I think it just takes like those little micro steps to get there. And sometimes you have a big wake up call, like both of us had big wake up
Absolutely.
calls. And then sometimes it's just a choice. One day you decide, I'm going to do something different. So I think this is a perfect segue into just kind of talking about the basics of stress. So I really want to talk about like what is stress and what are the signs of chronic stress. And I love that you have like you said bioengineering, something,
Chemistry.
biochemistry. So you've got like the biochemistry background and like you also have like that, you have like the certifications and all the things. So I really want to take it from that perspective and share with our audience today.
Absolutely. So I think everyone has experienced stress in many forms, coming from different places. And when we know that we're stressed, the signs would be we're anxious, we can't sleep because you wake up in the middle of the night and thinking about, will I have work? Will my girlfriend dump me? Am I going to survive the winter? Whatever, like, and typically when you wake up at night, it will be something like horrible. And in the morning, it's like, oh, like, it wasn't that bad, right? Like, why am I even stressed? Higher heart rate than usual. So you have like, boom, 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 like I cannot sleep or like for no reason during the day. We can't focus, and that can be a sign of stress. And those are things that are really visible and something that we can see, feel, and things like that. But there are also kinds of stress when you don't know that you are stressed, because to the body, the situation of stress, like itself, it's the same, but it doesn't have to present itself if you don't feel it, like if you're not aware. So our body responds to stress. Like if you don't have food available, some people will just like, I'm not eating. I don't care, right? Like maybe I'm losing weight, maybe, I'm too busy, maybe I'm just, there was no food. And some people like, they're really like, okay, I'm hungry, so what? But for our body, it might be stress. So we will internally present the same kind of symptoms, which will trigger our cortisol and adrenaline. And we might sometimes feel like, oh, I'm so energetic and so, eager to work just because I fasted for 3 days. And it's actually adrenaline is kicking in and it triggers cortisol, right? So all those signs that are visible or not, we can look at, and we should always think in the way like, why am I feeling this way? Should I be feeling that excited for no reason? Maybe something is going on. Maybe it's actually not good. Now, what stress is something that we typically do not know. And it's funny, I just did lecture at WIPA New York and I asked what stress is, and no one could answer that. And it was probably like 40, 50 people. I hope I'm not lying there. So we think, or we are typically thinking, that stress will be something like, oh, someone is chasing me, my boss is screaming at me, my client wants something and they're not supposed to, and my boss is a dick. Pardon my French. I'm fighting with my wife, I'm fighting with my girlfriend, my kids are driving me nuts. So it's all something that is happening to us, right? I went and gambled, I lost all my money, right? The client asked me to stay 2 hours for the wedding, which I didn't plan, and now like I need to wake up early and I didn't plan on that and I don't want to be here, blah, 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 right? Like, so we think that stress is a situation that happens to us. And this is how almost everyone operates. So when we talk about stress prevention, people say, okay, how do I prevent the situations that cause stress? Which is completely incorrect. Many times in life, we have situations that cause stress to us and they're not stressing anyone else. We are stressed about different things that to us are bad and to someone else is not. People who have phobias are an excellent example. My kids afraid of spiders like crazy, and I can destroy their life just by saying like I'll bring a spider, while I can take a spider, play with it, like let it go, and I don't have any emotions about it, right? So this is not the spider. It's how we respond to situations. And this is the key. Anything that happens to us can be stressful or not. Some people afraid to go and speak on stage, and I think almost everyone, including myself in the past. Others thrive on it and they get excited and it gets their adrenaline rushing and things like that. Some people afraid of new situations and some people look for that. Some people afraid to, go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but some not. So we can talk about different situations, but also we can talk about less like fun things. There are people who just don't care in general about most things. And if their relative is dying, they would say, okay, like it's life, while others will be devastated even if they don't know the relative just by the fact. Some people will watch a movie and cry or get stressed or whatever. And some people, like, it's just a movie, like, who cares? Something happens to your neighbor, something happens in your family, something even happens to you. Someone will say it's life, and someone will never sleep again, basically, right? So we thinking that stress is a thing. The stress is our response to whatever situation it is. And it's very liberating to understand that. And it's really hard to understand that because people like, I can say it 100 times, but until a person actually processes that and say, oh, it's me, it's not the surroundings, and they will not get any change of that. But if we reframe, if we realize that I can treat this situation differently, I can look for good outcomes, or I can weigh like what is actually happening. Is it really that bad? What's the worst thing that can happen? Did it happen before and I'm, still here? Do I know many people who died from boss screaming at them? Do I know anyone who actually died because they were fired, right? Like it's a real scare, like someone fired someone. Luckily, most of us are business owners, like no one is going to fire us for real, but that's a real fear. But when people get fired and lose health insurance, they actually say, okay, like nothing really happened. Maybe it's a new opportunity for me. And we can treat most situations like that. Probably not death of a relative, which still some people with like who are more like monks, they can find good things in really bad things as well. But it's in the end, it's still what we think. And animals also get stressed. Dogs get stressed. But if something happens to them, they're not getting stressed. So we all have different triggers. So helping people to navigate that, I think it's a big thing. And there's a big parallel here as well. So a lot of, self-help books and talks and like Tony Robbins, things like that. And I myself, and probably you too, we talk about taking responsibility for whatever is happening to us. And like if it's raining and I got wet, it's not because it's raining, it's because I didn't look at the forecast and didn't took the umbrella with me. If someone crashed into me, 9% of the time is because I didn't look and I didn't predict that, and like I could avoid the situation. But we don't think like that typically. We think, oh, like that happened to us. If we take responsibility for anything that is happening to us, we realize that it's actually all about us. The life is way easier. There's way more control. There's way less stress. So that is kind of a parallel there, because it's all in your head and it's all essentially because of you. Does it all help? Like, does it make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does. I've done a lot of research. I have a lot of support in multiple different areas like fitness and business and therapy and all these different spaces. And stress gets talked about in different ways in different spaces. But one of the things that I like to talk to my coaching clients around, because as business owners, like, I think that we just assume that we have to be stressed out in order to perform our job. That's not the case. Like, you can actually operate from a grounded space. But one of the things I like to talk to my clients about is like body first, mind second. So a lot of times what'll happen is my clients will come to me and they'll be like, oh, I'm so stressed out about this. And these are the thoughts that coming up. And I'm like, cool. How's your body feeling? Like, have you had water? Have you had enough sleep? Have you had human connection? Have you taken a moment to breathe deeply and remind yourself you're in the present moment and not the past moment or the future moment? And that right there, a lot of times will get people out of a cycle, because you cannot outthink your way out of a body problem. So if your body is feeling and experiencing stress, it's going to turn into mindset things. It's going to turn into thoughts for you. So a lot of times that's where I will go with my clients first, and they know it. They'll be like, oh, I already drank water. Like, I got good sleep last night. I'm like, okay, then we can
Good.
talk about the mindset side. But one of the other things I thought would be really cool to talk to you about, I've heard this from several different spaces, but specifically in the fitness space around stress buckets. So we all have stress buckets. And essentially, like, what this means is like you have one very large bucket, and everything that is stressing you out is going into that bucket. So at a certain point, it's going to overflow. So if you are in, let's say, a diet at the same time as maybe like grieving the loss of a family member at the same time as wedding season, of course you're going to be stressed. So it's not how can we avoid the situations that are going to show up in life that are going to have stressful moments in them. It's more like, how are we taking care of our stress bucket? And how are we making sure that it's not anywhere close to overflowing? Which I think leads beautifully into like, what are some of your practices for stress management, either on a wedding day or just in general? I think that would be like the perfect place to go with this conversation.
All right. So excellent thinking, and like I love that approach. I heard it. I don't think about this way, because I mean stress is just going to be there no matter what. Like if you know Alex Hormozy, right? He talks about a person like a billionaire that he knows that complains about like having no money, right? Because he has everything, like, but he wants more because someone he knows has more. And we will always create stress for ourselves. Always. There's no people who are like, I'm just chill, that my life is great and nothing is happening to me. It's all a front. Even the happiest person will be worried about something, because this is how we operate. And actually, there's that theory that like if everything is really good, you're probably dead, right? Or maybe not a theory, but your brain cannot just be like not solving problems at all. So we always will create ourselves something. And if you don't have real problems, you will create virtual problems that are not problems. But in terms of like, how do I deal with my stress? It will sound weird. I work out every day. At least I try, unless like it's like 5 a.m. flight. And people don't like to learn that. But working out is the most accessible, most powerful, and very effective stress reductor and preventer. And that is partially because we are built to do two things, which people don't do. We are built to move heavy weights by definition as a human, as an animal. And yes, I am comparing us to animals because we are, and to move in general, to walk. And if some people walk, most people do not touch anything heavy. And I see it especially with people who are like very high end CEOs, top lawyers, like big business owners, who go to gym and do things they never push too hard. And then they say, oh, like it didn't help me to do anything. Now, when we push hard, when we do things that we're supposed to do, we have large release of adrenaline and our androgen hormones, which are both female, male, like define it whether you want, but we all have the same hormones, just in different amounts. And if they are released as needed, plus if we sleep correctly, then we are going to be mostly fine. Everyone who goes to the gym and works out knows that when you're coming out of the gym or whatever you did, you always feel better. Always. There's no, like, unless you got injured and you cannot walk, or they took you out on a stretcher, which actually doesn't happen. Don't be afraid, guys. You always feel better because you're reducing cortisol, you elevating adrenaline, you're reducing your hunger, you elevating your energy. You will always feel great. And thus, starting a day with a workout will always take a big edge, if not remove your stress completely about things. Now, I just mentioned walking. Most people think that walking is to burn calories, which it's not. No one will lose weight by walking, and some will not lose weight from running. So that's not the goal of it. But in terms of stress, two things are happening. Thing number one, we are designed to walk. So when we do not walk, we develop problems that stress us because if you're not walking, something is happening to you evolutionary. Meaning you don't have access to food, to water, you're locked somewhere else. So your brain thinks you're screwed because you're not walking. And it creates stress. And you will start being anxious about things that don't make you anxious typically. You will develop different paranoias and fears just because your body has to put that fear, stress into somewhere where it lets you know you need to do the thing. Number two, we are designed the way that when we walk and our eyes shift to different directions all the time mindlessly, it reduces cortisol. And there's even therapy that is called EMDR that is based on eye movement, which is very efficient for PTSD. And hopefully no one that is listening or watching will never experience that. But that therapy is very efficient and was designed on effect of walking. So they mimic eye movement for the person who comes into a doctor. And I know many people who went through this, including therapists who I work with. And everyone can do this just by walking. If you walk twice a day, you will experience huge stress reduction just by doing that. It's hard to start if it's cold and I don't have the time, I don't have the 10 minutes, blah, 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 right? It's always BS, and we can always find the time. Everyone is on social media, everyone is watching TV, everyone is doing completely unnecessary things. So you can as well go and walk. So what if it's cold or hot or raining or snowing, which is going to happen? It's life, and you will be better off still. So that is a big thing, and I walk twice a day. Additionally, something that is very important in the end, the way we work is hormones. And when we say hormones, people typically think, I'm on my period and my before period, and it's usually ladies. Everyone depends on hormones because hormones are what tells your body how to work. And it doesn't have to be estrogen or testosterone, it's everything else. So we're talking about adrenaline and cortisol and adenosine, which we might talk about as well, and dopamine, and anything else, that melatonin that affects your sleep and things like that. All of that creates our cycle of the day. When we wake up, we need to know it's morning, and before bed, we need to know that it's evening. If we are not exposed to daylight, whatever it is, right now it's gray outside here, and it's not daylight, kind of, but there's a spectrum of sun that will still tell my brain it's a daytime. And being exposed to daylight, not through the window actually, because it blocks the spectrum, but being outside for at least 10 minutes in the morning will tell your system to start your day properly. Reduce hormones that should not be there, increase hormones that should be there, making you an animal that lives outside. If we do it twice a day, we create a cycle that is healthy for the body, which will reduce stress in this way as well. So that's very basic things like working out and walking, because we need to do that. Now, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say I had a little anecdote here. I second shot for some of my friends who they're I love them so much. But we second shot in the mountains and it was in Aspen, Colorado. And that morning she got up before the wedding and she was like, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go for a walk." What she meant was, "Do you want to go for a run up Aspen Mountain before this wedding day?" I got to the base of the mountain and I was like, "I love you. I'm just going to walk around the little neighborhood here because I'm not going to run on a wedding day." Like, I wasn't really acclimated to the altitude at that time. But I love that you work out as much as you do, but I also love that that's like part of your routine for wedding day. And I think it's important to bring your normal routine that you do throughout the week into your wedding days. So if you are normally working out 5 days a week, that shouldn't change just because it's a wedding day week, essentially. So I love that.
100%. And actually, like I will plug that in that you mentioned routine. Our brain loves routine. Like we think we want variety. We think we want excitement. We actually want routine. We want the things to be the same all the time. And then you will not be stressed. It's when we have shifts and things happening to us that we're like not supposed to, or like something that overexcites us and then dopamine goes down, we get stressed. It will be hard on your performance, on your energy, on everything. When it's all the same boring thing all the time, wake up the same time, you go to the gym, you eat at the same time, and you go to sleep on time, hopefully sometimes, like when you're not working, all of that tells your system that everything is fine. If you party at 3 a.m., you will be very stressed, your sugar will be released, and you might be happy, but it will screw your system over. So we want to be very boring if we want to stay healthy and not stressed. Now, most of us doing very like big sin in our Western society, we drink coffee. We love coffee. We drink it in the morning, in the evening, at night, not to fall asleep and like all of that great stuff. But the fact is, most people who are stressed, they drink coffee. When you remove the coffee, you start being way less stressed because coffee elevates your cortisol, coffee elevates your heart rate, and it makes it very, very hard to recover from that. Coffee, actually, it's not kind of subject for this topic, but coffee destroys your sleep. And on the back end of that, if you don't sleep well, you cannot not be stressed. And so coffee is like the whole huge topic. But if you stop drinking coffee, you will be way more energetic and you will be way less stressed. So in this house, we drink decaf only, same taste, everything is the same. I'm guilty with drinking Starbucks, but we like the Sumatra decaf. It's perfect and it helps a lot. So coffee is another thing that if you're stressed, you want to get rid of. Now, we all guilty of, where's the thing? Like everyone has this thing, right? And this thing will make us stressed like hell. We wake up, we take the phone, we go with it to the shower, we sit with it in the toilet. Yes, we eat with it, we walk with it, we work with it. Hello to all the vendors who are like spending wedding on the phone every single moment when they don't need to do something, right? Like we're all on the phone. We are on it before bed and we are on it if we, God forbid, wake up at night. And what it does multiple things. First of all, the light from it, if it's not during the day, it will disrupt your sleep it will destroy your night, even if you fall asleep. It is constant stream of information that you really don't need that will make your brain go even if it's not something stressful. Even if you're looking at pictures of the cute donkeys at 3 a.m. because you can't sleep, not helping you to sleep at all. We don't need to read emails every single minute. We don't need any news when you wake up or before bed. And people are very guilty of like being attached to that thing, like it's their life. And there's a lot of research, even like it is real addiction. It elevates dopamine to crazy levels. And if anyone doesn't believe me, try to put your phone away for 2 days and see how you feel. Or take a phone away from your teen and see how they behave, because they will be miserable. It's a real withdrawal. So remove your phone from bedroom. Don't be on it on the phone. Don't be on the phone when you wake up. Try to reduce the phone time at all times and maybe schedule yourself like things like I'm reading my email twice a day, unless your really life depends on that. And sometimes your job is to read email, but for most of us, it's not. People will wait. People are the same. And for me, it's a huge struggle because I can't wait on things. I hate. So when I get an email from a client, I have to respond to it right away. I have an urge. And when I don't get reply from people who are in the industry, like within 5 minutes, like, what the hell that person is doing? Like, I know they're on the phone. Why not replying, right? Like, but it's very unhealthy behavior.
Yeah,
People
and I want
should
to give
not
you
wait.
guys a couple of like action steps here because I think this is something that so many people struggle with and like we've normalized it to a point where it's like it's weird to not struggle with this. So even if you have all the systems in place so that like you aren't on your phone as often and you don't sleep like near your phone and like you know like don't check your email on your phone and stuff. Even if you have those, you might still struggle with it, but some of the things that I have put into place that have helped me a lot with like just not being on my phone as much as I used to be. The first thing is I have my phone inside of the nightstand drawer instead of it being on top of the nightstand. It's also across the room. So we have plugs in different parts of our bedroom. And so ours, I usually charge it like either in the nightstand, like so it's inside the drawer, or I will charge it in the dresser across the room. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's a free app called Opal, OPAL, completely free. It will block different apps on your phone. So what you can do is you can set it up for nighttime. So from like, let's just say 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., you cannot access your email. You cannot access your Slack. You can't access Instagram. So that's one of the things that I put in place that really helped me. And the other piece of that, like with answering emails, is I actually took my email off of my phone and I have something called admin parties twice a day. So an admin party is where I will go onto my computer and I'll go answer my emails or I'll go answer anything that like requires a little bit more attention. And I'll just kind of do a batch of a whole bunch of different like tasks at once. So if you think you have to answer your email all the time and look at your email all the time, I recommend doing an admin party where it's like 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is my admin party. These are the tasks I'm doing. And just try it out, experiment, see if you like it or not.
I can tell you, no one will like it at the beginning. They all will have to withdraw, which is really, really hard. I will add to this that many times when like it's night, it's evening, you just woke up, and your attention is kind of very weird and your cortisol is up and you pull in the phone and you're having like email from someone, might be a client or your boss or whatever it is, and you're reading the subject and you're thinking it's something else. You just read like 3 words and it's already stressing you out. And maybe it has nothing to do with anything. Maybe you didn't read it correctly. And if you open it, actually will show information like, oh, it's not what I'm thinking. You're already getting stressed for nothing, for 0 reasons. And when I used to be in corporate, I had my workers sometimes reply to my email something like completely unrelated and horrible or offensive or scared because they just instinctively typed something just based on the subject that they saw. And sometimes like forwarding something to someone like totally unrelated. So don't have the phone anywhere near your bed. Stay away from that and you will be way better. Another thing is we all love sugar. We all love carb and we like our dinners. Now, what you might not know, that the more sugar you eat, the higher your cortisol will be, because the cortisol and sugar are very much related. Sugar elevates cortisol, cortisol elevates sugar, and you create a loop. By eating a cake to relax, you're elevating your cortisol, which will trigger sugar elevation, and then you will be, craving, you will be stressed, and this is how people get into a loop of like, I'm going to eat every single cookie I see around me. So that's one thing. Another thing is do not eat late. When we're eating late, our hormones supposed to get us ready to sleep. And I don't care if you're at a wedding and it's 1 a.m. and you're hungry or whatever, because right there, you're elevating your stress even more and you're creating another loop. If you do not eat in the evening, and I personally rarely eat after 4 p.m., which might sound horrible to people, but that's just great. And you don't need to worry about dinner. And you don't need to think about, oh, will they feed me at the wedding? Because like, guys, you're not at the wedding to be fed. And I see those horrible contracts from people who like, especially contractors who send like, oh, like I need to get a meal, after 4 hours working. Like, this is what you doing weddings for, like to eat. So do not eat late. If you really have to eat, have something that is healthy, like protein bar, like protein shake with yourself, but try to avoid food entirely, and your life will change. I promise you. You will stop craving. You will stop being hungry. You will be less stressed. You will be way more energized, and you might also lose weight if you want to do that, right? In the process. And last thing for this is that people turned a lot to different supplements like ashwagandha, and there's rhodiola rhodea, and there's L-theanine and different other things that's supposed to help with stress. They do take an edge off maybe sometimes, especially when you start taking them. There's a lot of placebo effect. But the truth is that they will not work long term, and they will not work well at all unless you're already doing things that you need to be doing for your stress. Meaning, like, they are supplements. If you're doing everything perfectly, they might help. If you're drinking loads of coffee and don't sleep, it's not going to help you, except the placebo effect, which is also good, but it's not going to help your body and hormones and anything like that.
Yeah. I saw this really cool. I was watching a YouTube video. I think it was like one of the chefs that I was watching. I watch like a lot of like food YouTube because I just love watching people cook. And they were talking about, it was like like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs triangle. So
Mhm.
like they were talking about how like the most important parts of like actually like healthy cooking and actually like eating healthy does not have to do with supplementation. Supplementation is at the very, very top. It's like 5% of what
Correct.
you need if you don't have like nutrients and if you don't have macros like covered and if you don't have like meal timing means nothing if you aren't sleeping and you aren't
Absolutely.
like getting protein. So I think this is like really great advice to just kind of remember that like a lot of the things that people will tell you are like stress management or helpful for stress are on top of the assumption that you are already doing the basics. So I think this is a really great like kind of like segue and transition into there's a ton of fluffy self-care out there. Like go take a bath and like, like go do this and go do that. And it's
Yeah,
like,
cold
well, that
exposure.
is yeah, and that stuff is amazing. It's like it's important to take care of yourself in certain ways. But if you're not taking care of yourself in the basic ways, everything else is just kind of fluffy and it's not going to work if you're not doing the basics. So, let's chit chat just a little bit about like some of the fluffy self-care out there, but talking about like the long-term ways to thrive in our lives and our business. So, for me personally, like I'll just kind of like anecdote here. I personally think like honoring yourself is one of the best self care things that you can do. So, advocating for yourself, setting up routines, being like nice to your brain internally, being nice to your body.
Important.
Pause and respond is one of my favorite things to tell my clients when they're getting into kind of like, oh, I'm in a stressful mood. I'm like, okay, well, did you auto respond or did you pause? So, I think this is such a beautiful conversation to have is just like, long term, what can we do to thrive in our lives and our business?
I think I agree with you a lot. Like, and we're talking about routine. So that is so important. We do a lot of things, especially as business owners. We need to deal with clients. We need to deal with like marketing, this, like paying bills, right? There's a lot of things that we don't want to do. There's a lot of things that we forget to do. So there's a lot of anti-stress techniques where like, oh, like you need to like just set up your calendar right and you won't be stressed. You will be if you're not doing the rest of the things. But it is very important to have kind of brain automation of everything that you do, having protocols for the things that you do most of the time, being consistent with anything. So if you need to do things, put them on a calendar and do those things when it's time to do that. Do not, again, like it's really plugging into the same thing. Like, do not respond to anything. And I call it like, do not kind of go into compulsive behavior ever for whatever reason. Like, if someone said something, you want to slap them, wait. And if in 5 minutes you still want to, like, go ahead. But probably in 5 minutes you won't be willing to do those things. We always want to respond right away because this is how we are kind of wired, because our like ancient brain that is called amygdala like tells like, oh, go do this, like kill that person or run away or like scream at them or just get defensive. But our prefrontal cortex, that is kind of small part of the brain that we have comparing to other animals, like we have a big one, allows us to think and pause. And if we don't use it, if we don't exercise that ability, we're losing it. The more you use it, the more you pause, the easier it will be to do in every single situation. And I think it's like beyond the point. If you always compulsive, you will become more and more and more compulsive. But also, if your client sent you an email and you're really upset about it, don't wait for 2 days to respond to them, because they're just, based like horrible customer service. Plan things ahead. If you are in New York City and you have a wedding and it's usually going to be traffic, get there an hour earlier. It sounds horrible, but if you plan to be there an hour earlier, you will be there 20 minutes early. If you plan to be there on time, you will be late. Everyone knows that, and still people get stressed because, I'm not going to be there on time, and I planned it to be there on time. Take time for everything, just like with thinking. When you're communicating things to others, something is stressing you. Just like you need to talk to your spouse, to your partner, to your vendors, tell everyone things that might stress you out. Explain like your point of view. Always be open, like live that communication. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Sometimes people being afraid, like, what if I say that? They will think weird of me. No one will. Everyone is in the same place. You are not different. I'm sorry, like no one is really different. And being open and being vulnerable about your things will show you how like there's nothing to be afraid of. Just tell what you're thinking, tell about your fears, tell about your kind of ideas, and everything will come up into the one place, and people will be thankful that you tell them those things. One big thing that I think people have, especially in our business, like of weddings, we have taken things personal. If anyone says something on the wedding day, we take it personally. If, I don't know, like from the standpoint of a photographer, if a client says like, like this, like photo doesn't look like cool, I expect something else, we take it personally. If someone says anything about, I don't know, your equipment or like whatever, a neighbor says something about your car, like we take things like it's, oh my God, it happens to me. Again, back to the like responsibility. But in your business, it's all business. Those people, most of the time, they are not your friends. They don't really know you. You are just providing the business part. You are delivering the service. And if you're stressed about the response, probably either you didn't deliver or you didn't set up expectations. But in the end, it's not about you. Don't take things personally. Imagine if you had 50-person company and all your workers doing things good or bad, and you take in personally every single thing that goes to something, you will not have life. And yet you go to grocery store and like they gave you something that is broken or like dirty, and you tell them, oh my God, like I don't know, this thing is broken. And they're like, okay, like take another one. They don't care. And so should be you. You should care about the service. You should be caring about people who work for you and with you. You shouldn't care about what anyone thinks, because in the end, they also don't care. They only care about themselves, their own experience, and not about you. They don't judge you. They don't know you. You are just there for work, even if you worked with them for a year. It's not personal. If it's your family, that's something else. But we're talking business here. And preparation for everything is very important. If you preparing to big wedding day and you're thinking that like, oh my God, I might miss, I don't know, batteries, cards, talking about photographers, or my makeup kit will miss something. So take time and prep everything ahead of time. When you're ready, you are never stressed about those things. I used to fly for work twice a week, which was kind of horrible. And I do not recommend, but I did. And for me personally, and I think for many people, preparing for the flight, even if it's like overnight stay, it's usually stressful. What I'm going to take with me, like what goes into bag, how do I forget things? And for me, it was like 3 days of stress for 1 day trip. And eventually I just came up with a checklist that had like everything that I need to take with me if I'm flying to California, or everything I need to take with me if I'm flying to Germany. And if it's 1 day and 2 days, and then it evolved into like, what am I taking if I'm flying with kids? What if I'm flying with kids without my wife? So I created checklists that I used every time, and it, instead of 3 days of prep and stress, took me an hour for everything. And after doing it so many times, it just got into my head. So you wake me up in the middle of the night and tell like, we need to go. And I'm like, check, 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 check. Let's go. It will take me 30 minutes. So be prepared, anticipate things. And if you're doing business for more than 2 years, you know things that will happen. You anticipate things most of the time. You can always be prepped for that. Have your protocols, be consistent with your health, plan everything, and be communicable. So I think that will help mostly everyone to deal with any kind of stress.
Yeah, and I wanted to tack on here that like from the neuroscience like point of view, like the brain hates inefficiency. The brain would love for everything to be the same at all times.
Yes,
Because
consistency
it
wins
creates
always.
always. And it's because like the brain like really highly values predictability, because if it's predictable and it's proven to be a pattern for you, then it's safer because it's predictable. So when we talk about routines and we talk about protocols and we talk about all these different systems, I see a lot of creatives go, oh, well, every wedding is different. It's not. It is not. You have a system and a process for every single wedding that you go to. If you've been in it for more than 2 years, I
Don't
was
tell
in the wedding
clients.
industry. Yeah, don't tell clients. They don't want to hear that. But from the back end perspective and the back end side, you have systems that you might not even be tagging them as systems in your brain. You might just be thinking like, oh yeah, I think I kind of sort of do that every single time. If it's a system, go ahead and actually treat it like a system. So like Julian was talking about having a checklist. This can be the most basic Google document of checklists. It does not have to be something fancy, and it doesn't have to be anything like client facing, which means that it could be like, you know, your like little like scribbly notes if it needs to be. But I think that a lot of like creatives like get into this pattern of kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like compulsiveness and like just like being like very like reactive versus being very proactive and thinking through, okay, visualizing what this is going to look like, visualizing what do I need in order to like show up to my standard and show up to like the way that I do things. So if you take anything away from this entire podcast, I really would just be leaning into whatever you are currently experiencing with stress. That does not have to be the way that we go forward in the future and the patterns that we're creating for ourselves. So go back and listen to some of the tips that we talk about today. Go back and listen to some of the things that we were talking about with efficiency and protocols and routines and sleep specifically. I feel like we talked about that a lot on this episode, and I love that. But there are so many things that you are currently doing that could serve you better if you would just make teeny tiny little shifts and teeny tiny little tweaks for yourself. So Julian, do you have any like, let's wrap this up with a nice pretty bow, any final tips for anyone? And then I want to have you tell us how people can find you, how they can work with you in different capacities.
Of course, absolutely. So if you take anything out of it, absolutely anything, it's not going to be about drinking coffee or playing and things like that. Think that anything that happens to you doesn't happen to you. It's all happening completely unrelated to you. And there's a lot of this thought like, oh, like things are happening for you. And it's very nice and kind of meditation style, religious style like thing. But no, actually things happening unrelated to you, and you don't matter. And because you don't matter, it should matter to you. You just need to learn to understand that it is what it is. And if you deal with it in a calm and kind of controlled way, everything will be way better. And most situations that happening to us, we imagine them as something that is way worse. So always think about what's the worst thing that can happen to me in this specific situation. And you will always find out that actually like nothing will happen. And you've been in this situation a million of times. Now, in terms of what I'm doing currently, I am, because of multiple requests, I am starting a community for wedding pros, which is called Wellness Wedding Pros. Like sounds something very familiar. And we currently have about 15 people who want to be in a group setting that is very supportive and can help you to be accountable with anything that is related to your health habit, with your stress, being energized, anything really. It's not something that is going to be charging. Like I'm not going to charge for that. I just want to give place for wedding pros to be understood and talk to others who can actually get them and answer any questions. So there is a page that I created specifically for this that is called clarity.julianribinik.com. And if you go to that page, you will be able to sign up. I will get you information. I will add you to our community. And also, as a gift to all members and all listeners of Aislinn's podcast, you will get a complimentary session with me, and you can ask me any questions about your situation, stress, health, weight, whatever it is. I know it's very important. So if you come in through that page and you leave me your details, I will respond with my calendar link, and we can get on the call and talk about anything you want.
Amazing. Yay. Well, all of that's going to be in the show notes. So if you guys are like, I'm like, gotta go type it down, like I promise it'll be in the show notes for you. But Julian, I just want to say thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. It was really, really beautiful to hear it from your perspective, not only from like the photography side, but also like the health side and like how those two things can coexist. Because I think that there are so many people out there who don't believe it can coexist, but I promise you it can, coming from two wedding professionals who made it work.
We're still
But
here.
I just want to say, yeah, well, I'm not photographic anymore,
Well,
but
you're still
14
there.
years. But I just want to say again, thank you for coming on to the podcast and thank you for being here and sharing all of your knowledge. And I hope that you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. If you want to connect with Julian, all of his stuff will be in the show notes, and I will see you on the next episode.
Okay.